appreciate you joining us, Nick. First of all, brother, how long did you let it ride after that particular beatdown that the Mavs gave the Clippers last night?
I let it ride last night on the episode, and I let it ride the next day with Daniel Larson on the show. So, you had to do it twice. It was so nice.
All right, so in this game, there was a lot of things that we picked up, we learned from. What caught your eye the most, and why was it Maxi Kleber knocking down five three-pointers?
Maxi Magnets coming in real big there. We finally got some threes, and we finally got a role player that started to hit some threes, and that was massive, obviously, but I think it's the Mavs defense. Like, I was talking on the show today about how the Mavs defensive intensity matters more than their offensive execution in this series, and that as long as they're participating defensively, as long as they're getting stops and they're turning those stops into offense, they had 21 points off turnovers in that game 5. As long as they're doing that, they set a baseline for what they can do. They get some easy offense, and then they're not just trying to run this half-court Luka and Kyrie just grinding out offensive possessions over and over again and wearing them down, basically. And so, to me, it was the defense and the way that they got stops in that game.
If you were Ty Lue, how would you counter what the Mavericks have been doing to them?
I think is there motivation that he can bring? Can you bring the Dallas to Cancun billboard inside the locker room? Can you see how they can we turn it and make it a positive for them? I think that you need to show Paul George all of the times that you need to show him all the plays where he gets a switch and gets the player that he should want to attack and pulls back.
Yeah.
I'm going back and watching some of this game today, and the amount of times that he just pulls back and like pulls back his dribble instead of attacking a Lively or even a Luka or somebody, it's just baffling to me. I don't understand how a superstar type player can feel so passive at times. And even the 40-point game he had, a lot of it was just crazy shots. I mean, he hit, 6 or 7 threes in that game? A lot of them were contested. So it's on those stars, right? So stars have got to step up. They've got to create the shots. They've got to create the threes. And they've got to just be a lot better than they were in Game 5.
At the risk of being hasty, Nick, we have not finished out this series just yet, but I mean, it feels like Jason Kidd has done a pretty good job in, navigating the game plans and the processes that this team has gone through. What did you see, and how have you reflected on Jason Kidd's impact in this one?
Yeah, I think that he brings a calming presence. I think that he has worked with Luka and Kyrie in the sense that he has put them in positions to lead this team, which I think is really important. That it's not a me over we type of situation with them. They're working together really well. I think that he's maybe stepped away from that duo and not tried to micromanage so much. It'd be easy for a coach to come in and be like, all right, we've got to do this. I mean, the Mavs had issues with Rick Carlisle doing that at certain points in his tenure with the Mavericks, that he would micromanage certain things, get the players upset, things like that. Rajon Rondo then leaves the stadium or whatever. And in this case, Luka and Kyrie are allowed to do the things that they want, and they're both locked in. They're both bought into this team, and I think that that's something that we can't overlook when it comes to the job Jason Kidd has done, is to make sure that those two stars work together, that they work together well, and then the defense and how the defense has really stepped up, and how Luka and Kyrie have been such a big part of that defense being as solid as it's been so far.
I think they've also had solid chemistry, at least since the big trade happened. It's like everybody seems to be on the same page. Everybody feeds off of each other. Another note about the Dallas Mavericks, do you think that they realize that the last time, I mean, some of the new guys, I'm sure that somebody told them, the last time they played the Clippers in the playoffs, the Clippers came to Dallas and won Game 6 and then wrapped it up in Game 7 in L.A. Do you think, I know Luka got to remember that. I know you do. You were there.
Yes. In that series, though, the home team wasn't allowed to win until Game 7. So
exactly.
We're already bucking the trend with that a little bit here with this series. But to win Game 6, though, they had to have one of the greatest Kawhi Leonard playoff games. Honestly, one of the greatest playoff games that has maybe ever been played with Kawhi Leonard. What an insane Game 6 he had. What did he have, 45 points in that game?
Yep.
Was absolutely unstoppable.
And
if
defense,
they get that kind of a game from If they get that kind of a game from James Harden or Paul George, yeah, sure, right? Sure, go to Game 7. They deserve it kind of deal. But the game we saw last night between Harden and Paul George, they shrink it under pressure at times. We've seen that in their careers where they haven't been to the big stage. They've been to I think Harden's been to a couple Western Conference Finals, and Paul George has been to one with the Clippers. And there's been huge moments where the Clippers lost a 3-1 lead in a series. James Harden has, famously flopped in certain playoff games. And so this is now a moment for them. This could be a real big moment for them to like really make their case as, hey, our history is not our future, right? This is not who we are. We're these players that step up and rise to the occasion. Or they just fold and the Mavericks move on, and then, we can have fun.
Did you see that note where Jaden Hardy scored more points than James Harden in fewer minutes, of course?
Oh, he doubled him up. Doubled him up. We had a full Hardy party on the podcast.
It was
afterwards.
Crazy.
It was in garbage time. I mean, but still, yeah. I think that stat says more about the game that James Harden had.
Exactly. That's where I was going with this. Did you see the stat about how he now has more 10 shots with less than double digits than any player in NBA playoff history?
Yeah, he's had more games in the playoffs where he takes 10 or more shots and hits, what was it, 3 or less shots or 5 or less shots or something like that?
Yeah, 3 or less shots.
Yeah, he has had some really bad playoff games, and then that game 5, you just add that to the list of bad James Harden games, and he's getting older and all that, and so like he shouldn't be like the number one guy on the team. They should have Kawhi Leonard in that spot, but even when Kawhi Leonard was playing, he was not right, and so this Clippers team is kind of a mess. I was talking with our Locked On Clippers host today, and he is just done with this team. He's like, I'm sick of looking at these guys. Basically, is where he is with them.
Now, one of the things you talked about, you mentioned future, and that immediately took me to Derrick Lively II, who I took myself, and it helped by Tim Cato writing a piece about Derrick Lively that dropped earlier today, back to when he was drafted. And my thought process was, you're going to need to do a lot of work for him to be ready for postseason basketball come this time of year. And he's been downright impressive. Like, what have you seen from him that's made him so effective in this one?
His role has not changed in the slightest. And I think from day one, he knew what his role was going to be. He's perfectly suited for his role. And the coaching staff did a good job of preparing him for exactly what that role would be. And they saw all throughout the year, all right, you're going to come in, you're going to defend the rim, you're going to set screens, you're going to roll, you're going to get the ball in the short roll, and you're going to make the right pass. And I think they learned that early on in the season that he was really good at that. And he did that again. A couple of Maxey shots were from Derrick Lively getting the ball in the short roll, kicking it out to Maxey and doing that. And so I think his role being the exact same, I think that coming off the bench takes a lot of the pressure off of him, that it's not just him. And if he gets in foul trouble or something, it's game over for the Mavericks. They have Daniel Gafford, and Gafford has struggled a little bit here, but Lively has really stepped up. I knew this was going to be a series that he would play well in. And he's just got Luka and Kyrie serving him up like lobs right at the rim. And then he's able to just clean up the garbage and all that. And that's just such a freeing role if you've ever played basketball. If you could just be the guy that, is not relied upon, but can be there and do good things, then, man, that's a great spot to be in.
And he's got a mentor. Tyson Chandler's been working with him a lot, and they have similar games. So what a guy to have in your, to work with you and practice on and Dallas games and whatnot. But I want to ask you about Kyrie, especially his effect yesterday. We saw the return of playoff Luka, but Kyrie, it wasn't about scoring 40 points. He had a huge effect on the game. What did you see?
Yeah, he has a massive effect on this team in general. I think that him trying on defense, I think that him putting in that effort on defense, and then I think where he picks his spots to get his buckets is super important. I'm just watching that third quarter and that play that LeBron tweeted about, the one where he gets the ball in transition, it's a steal, it's another James Harden bad dribble. Mm-hmm. He punches the ball in the air right to himself. He gets the ball behind the back, and then he goes right to left, right in front of the rim, and finishes left on the right side, and just so fast and so quick and so smooth. And it was such a great transition bucket that it gave the Mavericks some momentum, and then everybody on the bench was freaking out about how great the play was. That gave the team energy. And I think that them seeing that and seeing Kyrie do some of the things that he can do boosts this team a lot. And then, there are times when this team has to, calm down, and like all of a sudden the Clippers are going on a little bit of a run, and Kyrie will just step up and hit a three, or Kyrie will start the run at the beginning of, or in the middle of game 3 when the Mavericks went down, or game 4 when the Mavericks went down in that 131. And man, he just finds his spots and picks his spots really well. And he's averaging 21 points in the second half of games. I mean, he comes up big in the right moment.
And there's not to be forgotten, like you talk about, calming them down, not just with the play, like actively telling the guys to calm down. Like he is that leader in that way. We're talking to Nick Angstadt. Yes, they do. They absolutely do. We're talking to Nick Angstadt of Locked On Mavs. And Nick, transitioning forward to tomorrow, 8:30 tip for this game. Just how vital is it that the Mavs get this done on Friday at the AAC rather than Sunday headed back to crypto?
Yeah, it's super important. Finish it off on your home court. You don't have to go back to Game 7. Anything can happen. I mean, you guys have seen, we've all seen a bunch of Game 7s where you just never know what's going to happen at the end. I mean, you go back to 2022 when the Mavs destroyed the Clippers in Game 7, and everyone's like, there's no explanation for this game and how this happened. And so you never know what can happen in that. Important to finish out in Game 6. It's also important that this Clippers team is starting to fall apart, right? There's a crack in the wall. There's a crack in the armor there. Exploit it. Like, take advantage of it. Like, as Skin Wade used to say, put the throat on the neck. What's the phrase that he used? I think it was on the fan.
Yeah.
But yeah, just take advantage of that and just finish it off while they're kind of down here.
And don't forget that second round series against the Thunder starts on Tuesday, May 7th, regardless of when you finish the series.
Rest up.
Right.
So I imagine that would also be a motivating factor as well. Well, I mean, outside of what we've talked about, was there anything else notable in Game 5 that you just that really caught your attention?
Russell Westbrook is doing some things.
Wow.
He's doing some things that I don't really like. He's missing a bunch of shots, which I do like. He should be a guy that comes in and really gives the Mavericks problems like he did when they played in the regular season. But there was that moment in the third quarter where Westbrook barrels into Luka in transition, and Luka's on the ground going, how was that not a foul? And also that was pretty dirty and all that. And then a couple possessions after that play, Luka is going for a loose ball. He should be able to get to it, but Westbrook is barreling in for that loose ball too, and Luka avoids the contact. I've never seen Luka make that decision where he decides to not put his body on the line to try and go for the ball, or not even like try to bait for a foul in that situation and not go for the ball. And so I don't think that Luka was scared in that moment, but I do think that he was scared off of that possession because of what Westbrook did. And it's definitely something to watch if this Clippers team needs to muck up the game, make it really dirty, things like that. Westbrook and PJ Tucker got some run in Game 5 too. So if we see any of that, if the Clippers need some of that on their side, that's something I would watch for if I'm Luka.
Nick, you just nailed exactly what he's been doing. He's just trying to muck it up because he doesn't have the skill set that he used to have. I actually like Russell during his career, but the only thing he's been good in this series is trying to get the Mavericks out of their game and get mad and that kind of thing. So you just nailed it. That's exactly what they bring him in. It's kind of like a goon in a hockey game.
That's what he's doing. I mean, he's got some skills still. Like I don't think this is the series for him, but the playoffs are just super hard. If you can't shoot, then they're just leaving him. I mean, Derrick Jones Jr., there's moments in the game last night where every Maverick, they look out and they're like, all right, I got to go and recover and close out on the shooter. And then they realize it's Russell Westbrook and they just stop running. And they just look at him. Like, imagine what that feels like. You're a former MVP, and guys are not even finishing their closeouts against you. It's kind of wild. But that's the spot that we're in right now.
It'll be interesting. We saw Ty Lue break the seal on Pops Jr., PJ Tucker, so I'm interested to see if maybe he feels strong enough to maybe do that again. But regardless, it'll be a fun game tomorrow, and you'll have a post game like you always do, don't you?
I'll have a post-game Locked On Mavs on YouTube, Spotify, Apple, all the podcast platforms and all that. And our good friend Slightly Biased and me will have you covered on that.